Hello, welcome to this Belbin webinar where we'll be talking about the balance trap and using Belbin strategically for team success. My name's Jo Keeler. I'm the Managing Director here at Belbin, and we're going to start in about 40 seconds, making sure that we keep to time and all that. So for those of you who are already here, already keen, please do introduce yourself. Go to the bottom there, find the chat channel, and please do introduce yourself. Like I said, my name's Jo, and I'm here in the Belbin headquarters. I'm just outside of Cambridge in the UK. And to do the normal check, it's quite grey. I'm really excited that I chose to take my holidays at the end of the holiday time, so next week, and missed all of the good weather and have been here in the office during that time. But hey, that's just one of those things, isn't it? So welcome. We will start in about 20 seconds or so. I know that there's always a time lag between StreamYard and LinkedIn and YouTube, which are the three channels that we record this webinar on. So what happens, I start talking and then everything comes in. So apologies for that. So wonderful. Thank you, Toby. Okay, you're in Newcastle. Lovely. Alicia training. Fantastic. We were talking about Newcastle just the other day and saying how we're going to go up there again very soon because we enjoy it so much. The place and most importantly, the people. A great place to be. Hello, Helene from Denmark. Wonderful. So glad that you could join us today. We do have a very international audience normally, so it's wonderful to see people not just based in the UK. And hello, Rob. Good, I'm quite glad it's equally as cloudy in Stamford. Richard, hi there from Cranfield University. It is being recorded, Richard. Do not fear. And as I can see, you're coming in via StreamYard. That means if you wait for maybe a couple of hours, I'll send everybody an email, not just with the recording, but also with any other materials that we've referenced as we go along. So thank you. Thomas from Switzerland, hello. Gary, hello there from Cheddar Gorge. Fantastic. Amanda, hello, Amanda. Lovely to see you. You're also in Cambridge. And we have Denise, wonderful, from Track Surveys. Hello there. Lovely to see you from Track Surveys there. Wonderful. Okay, we're 1 minute past now, according to my clock. So we'd better make a start. So officially, welcome to this Belbin webinar, where we'll be talking about team balance. Do you always need it? When do you need balance and when don't you? So we'll be talking about team balance for the next 40 minutes or so. We would love you to join in. So please do put any comments or any questions in the comments, because it'd be great if this was quite an interactive session. I am by myself today, so I will be trying to type, talk, and just multitask. So apologies if I do look a little bit distracted. A bit of admin, a bit of housekeeping. Yes, this is being recorded. If you are joining us from StreamYard, you will be sent 2 emails. One, the second I click end stream, and you'll just get a very, I think it's just a one line with a link. Or if you just wait a little bit longer, we'll send you an official email with all of the things that we refer to as well. So yes, it is being recorded. What else do I need to say here? Okay, it's recorded. Okay, yeah. What do we do here at Belbin? I thought I'd start with that actually, because the more I get out and I talk to people, the more we all get out and we talk to people, sometimes we realise that there is a perception that Belbin, we're just here doing some research and just looking at teams and stuff, which is true. We are research. We are constantly looking at how to make your teams as effective as possible. But we're also here to support you. So whether or not you're in HR, you're in training, you're a management consultant, you're a lecturer, we're here to help you help your teams. And we do that by running an accreditation course so that you can be the team experts and become Belbin accredited. We also do this by running practical sessions and taster sessions. There's lots of ways, webinars. There's lots of ways which you can get in contact with us and find out more about how Belbin can help you and your teams become more successful. We also provide the science behind teamwork. So if you're serious about teams, we provide the Belbin reports, the individual reports, the team reports, the working relationship reports, all via our online platform called Interplace. which helps you really understand not just your strengths and weaknesses and that of the people in your teams, but it helps you understand how to use this. So some advice on how to use this information as opposed to it just being a label, a bit of a so what really. So we provide all of the science via the Interplace platform to be able to help you help your teams. So that's what we do here. And we have distributors around the world, which is so great when we see so many people from around the world joining us on our webinars. So Belbin really is a language which is a global language and is used worldwide, obviously. Okay, so let's get started. The balance trap, using Belbin strategically for team success. What we'll be doing as we go through this is we'll be looking really at seven times when actually balancing the team doesn't always equal a successful team. It's a difficult one, isn't it? I think if you're serious about teamwork, if you know that teamwork isn't a one and done approach, you'll understand that teams are fluid, teams are complicated. There isn't a blueprint team solution because there isn't really a blueprint team. So what we need to do is look at every team and look at its own merits and see what is it that this team requires. Because true teamwork, high performing teams are quite rare. We know this. If it was that easy, there wouldn't be a gazillion different books and people telling you about how to form teams. Teamwork is rare, powerful, but rare. And so we need to work at it. Teamwork isn't something that is done. It's something that's constant. It's evolving. And using Belbin isn't something that you just do. It's something that should be sort of really integrated into that team, into the work that you're doing with your teams. And it's an ongoing process, one that changes as the environment and everything changes alongside it. I say that with passion because I've been here now for far too many years. And when we talk to people, people very often say, oh, yes, we do this or we've done that. I'm talking about Belbin or any other tools. And it means really that what we're talking about is people who think that you just need to tick a box. And that's just not the case. We need to work with our teams on an ongoing basis, giving them the tools and language so that they can really become high performing. It's not a case of if you've got all 9 team roles, everything's going to be fine. Wouldn't it be lovely if life was that simple? Wouldn't it be great? So this is what we're going to be looking at over the next 40 minutes or so. Okay. Brilliant. We've got people joining us from the States and the University of Birmingham. Lovely. My brother's just got a job with you, actually. Starts very soon. Great that so many people are joining us. Like I said, I will be distracted. For that, I apologise. Okay, so when doesn't balance matter? When is it balance not necessarily critical for a team to be successful? And now this first time here is really when balance doesn't fit with the team's objectives. What do we mean by that? There's a lovely quote by Meredith here that the merits of a team should never be assessed without first considering its purpose. Those of you who have attended webinars before know this is a little bit of a thing about for me, is this is so critical. If the team doesn't know its objectives, if it doesn't know how it's being measured, if it doesn't know what the outcomes are going to be, if it doesn't know who the stakeholders are, if it doesn't know, you need to stop and you need to find out. Because a team can't be expected to work together and effectively without spending time up front. I was once speaking to one of our distributors in the US, and they'd had a 2-day team workshop with quite a senior leadership team, and they were expecting to go through all things Belbin, do this, but actually they ended up spending a day and a half just here because there wasn't clarity about what the team was there to achieve. And of course, what we need to make sure is just because we may get clarity on its purpose, on its objective, is to ensure that we're constantly reviewing this because it's fluid, isn't it? The objectives are fluid. Lots of things change. Give you another example. Let me go to the next slide. If the team is being put together to come up with ideas, to problem solve, or if a team is there to put together to implement something that's already been decided. Different team roles, different behaviours are going to be needed throughout that time. This is actually a case study from a creative agency. They were looking at, they had project teams that were working on, um, that they were given a brief by an organisation they were working with, and they had to come up with this solution. And what they found is that they were trying to get everybody involved at everything at all times, balancing. We've got a balanced team. But they realised that actually the amount of people, their engagement was quite low, their turnover of staff was quite high. And they realised it was because they were trying to involve everybody at every stage through their project plan, which is here. Their ideas stage, they'd involve everybody. Their evaluation stage, again, they'd have balance. They'd have all of those team roles throughout that whole stage. And then with the implementation and then with the completion. And the problems really were is that they didn't need to. You need to work out what it was for those people to be involved. So at the beginning with the ideas stage, you need that plant behavior, that creative, that original sort, that problem solver, the one who's going to sort of think about things and have lots of ideas. Not all of them will be very good, but they'll have lots of them. Along with that resource investigator who's going outside of the organisation, seeing what other people are doing, bringing those ideas back into the organisation. Brilliant. They are the roles you need for that ideas stage. But do you need the implementer at that point? The implementer who's working out the plan of action about how you're actually going to achieve it? Do you need the completer finisher at that point who's looking at the detail? Probably not. So before we put teams together, we need to check what it is that they're there to achieve. What they found here, just to give you a little bit more background on this case study, is because they're involving everybody all of the time, the plants and the resource investigators were also being included during the implementation stage. So what was happening is that those implementers, completer, finishers who were needed at this stage to put the process in, to check the details were right, is that the people coming in with more ideas saying, oh, actually, there's another way we could do this. Why don't we do that? And it was driving everybody mad. The same way as with the implementers, completer, finishers at the beginning, they're going, yeah, but how are we going to do that? Oh, but can you just check that you've got that exactly right? Again, during that initial stage, really not needed, driving everybody mad. So what this company did is just made sure that they allocated and they had separate teams within a larger team, ensuring that the right people were being involved at the right time. Because that's what we need to do, isn't it? Once we've got that objective, once we know what we're doing, we can then break down the work that's required to hit that objective, the behaviors that you need, and then allocate the right people, the right behaviors, the right people to the right tasks at the right time. Okay. So you don't need balance if the objectives of the team don't require it. But because the objectives will change, you do need to keep reviewing this to ensure that the right people are involved at the right time. So that's the first time you don't need balance. You also don't need balance in a team when the team isn't really a team. I put in there, what is in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Shakespeare. We need to reclaim the word team. A team is an overused phrase. It's used liberally and it scatters every LinkedIn post and everybody's value propositions, everybody's objectives. We need to reclaim what it is that we mean by team. Now, if you just put what is a team and you put it into Google, it just says a group or a collection of people with a common purpose. But a team is so much more than that. And that's why I think teamwork is quite rare. I mean, it's absolutely critical. We know it's critical for business success, but it's because we keep really muddying the waters about what a team is. We need to reclaim that. Okay, I'm just going to go on to the next slide here. This is a visual that actually came from Dr. Meredith Belbin's third book, Beyond the Team, which is fascinating. It looks at the differences between teams, groups, size, so on and so forth, and really looks at how you allocate work to teams. But anyway, I'm just taking this one graphic out because I think it's so important. We often don't need a team. It depends on the level of risk and it depends on the level of complexity. A team isn't always suitable. It could be that you just need a suitable individual. You can have one which is actually really good as the risk goes up. But if it's not complex, you only need one. Again, as the complexity goes up, you might need a talented individual. We might then need a collaborative group. Now, these tend to be hierarchical work groups, groups that perhaps have somebody telling everybody what to do. A collaborative group could also be a department. Very often people say, oh, we want to do something with our team. We go, who's the team? What's the marketing department? And you go, well, they're not really a team. They may all have the same broad part in the organizational chart, but they're working as a group. And we all know the differences between group and team dynamics. We'll talk about those shortly, actually. So what we need to do is just check, actually, that we are dealing with a team. Because if we're not dealing with a team, we don't necessarily need balance. So what is a team? Well, a team has that shared goal, that shared purpose we just spoke about. They know what there is that they're there to achieve. Everybody is chosen for the contribution that they can make to the team. They're not there due to their job title. They're not there to where they stand within the hierarchy of the organization. They're not there because of their ego or because they were included last time. They are there because they have been chosen to be there for what they can contribute. There should be shared decision making. There shouldn't be just one person telling everybody what to do. There's shared responsibility for outcome. This is really important. It's not just on one person's shoulder. It's not people saying, well, I've done my bit, off I go. There is shared collective responsibility for outcomes, for decision making. And this means there should also be shared responsibility for leadership. In true teams, you have a rotating leadership. The right person is leading at the right time. And everybody's happy with that because there isn't the ego, there isn't the hierarchy. Everybody is collaborative. They're not focused on that one leader. And there's also a lot of dynamic interaction. People aren't being told. There's stuff which is going on all of the time. And we've all been in those teams when all of these things can be ticked. And it's a wondrous place to be. It's where your psychological safety really does come to the fore. It's where we trust one another. And we do that because we know that the team has been put together with care. We've looked at it and said, right, these are the objectives. These are who we're going to have to contribute. So if you don't have a team, if you have a collaborative group, you don't necessarily in a collaborative group need balance. If everybody's kind of got the same role and they're all doing it well, do you need all 9 team roles? If you haven't got a shared objective and you're just sitting in the same space, is that important? Well, understanding who's there obviously is very important, but do you need all 9 team roles present at the same time? Probably not. The great thing about a true team is that also people understand the roles that they are playing there. They understand the behaviors, they understand the differences between that functional role as well as that team role. And that is really important. Okay, so a team doesn't need balance if it's not a team. And a team, we really do need to reclaim that. I would really recommend, because dynamics are different and we really need to just check, is this a real team? Is it a balanced team? Okay, on to number 3. When self-awareness is lacking. It says here, self-awareness isn't one truth. It's a delicate balance of 2 distinct, even competing viewpoints. That was written by Tasha Eurich. It was an HBR magazine a little while ago. She had this wonderful article. I'll put a link to it in the email about self-awareness. But that did make me laugh because I was reading something else of Meredith's the other day. And I'm in team roles at work this time. and he's got a lovely chapter, a strategy for self-management. Now, Team Roles at Work is really the book which, actually, I've got an old copy there. That was bad for me to show you that. This was a book which said the so what about team roles. How can you actually use it? And he says that there is a strategy for finding the real self. And that strategy rests on reconciling two separate strands of information. One derives from self-assessment and the other from the assessment of others. So it's kind of on the same wavelength. They're kind of saying the same things. Why is this important when we're talking about balance? Very often, and I don't know if those of you who use Belbin who are accredited or perhaps distributors who are here joining us today, is that we can run an initial Belbin session and everybody's got their Belbin reports, and we plot them all on a circle like here behind me, and we find out the distribution, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, there's at least one person in each segment, brilliant. But then we probe a little bit further, and we find out they've only done the reports based on how they see themselves. So then we ask them to find feedback from other people, to ask people who they work with, who they've worked with in various teams, people who value, feedback they value, their loving critics, so to speak, and to then find out what difference this makes to the report. And then we rerun the exercise and we realize actually how people think they are compared to how people are seeing them can be very, very different. So you think you have balance, but it's just based on an individual self-awareness. So actually, if that self-awareness is there, you don't have balance necessarily. It's really critical to look at how well the individual understands the way they're behaving, how they're coming across to others. I'll just give you a couple of descriptions here. This is one page of the Belbin individual report that you receive once you collect feedback from other people. You can see here for John Yellow, there's quite a lot really of agreement. So the bars on the left are how John sees themselves. And then on the right, now right next to it, is that collective feedback from other people. And what we're looking at really is to see where those gaps are. Where did they realize they don't have strengths, or where do they think they have strengths where other people are saying, maybe you do, but not quite as much as you thought. So we have there with the shape of the red one is that John's obviously high energy, quite competitive, is going to get the task achieved. And yes, people he works with agree with that. They say, yeah, we really see that contribution when we're working with you. John also sees themselves as really high resource investigator, someone who's going outside of the organization, someone who's really opportunistic, knows everybody, is great at negotiating and seeing what's needed. And the collective observers are saying, yeah, we do see that, but we don't see it quite as much as you see in yourself. And that's where conversations need to happen, because you can't say you have a balanced team if you've really just based that on self. You need to be able to base it on what others see as well. Just looking at John's example here, you've got that little bit of yellow bar, haven't you, which is plant, that one who's getting those original ideas. And you can see that John doesn't see any plant at all. This is really great learning. This is where development comes in. Understanding that actually other people are seeing that creative input into the team. So what we need to make sure we're doing is we're seeing the whole person, and then we need a balanced team, but not without the data. We need to have the right amount of data there to start with. This is an interesting one. It's another page of the report once you've got that feedback from others. And this is just looking at the feedback from others. It's seeing how much of each of those team roles that they are seeing, because of course Belbin measures behavior. We measure what you do, not who you are. So what you do is very visible, and we're not a personality tool. We're not based on Jung. We're there based on a lot of research that we carried out back in the 60s and have carried on ever since. And we are looking at the behavior, the what you do. There is such a distinct difference there. And that's why people can observe it. They can feed back on it. Here you have two bits of the line. The bit on the left is when they're seeing things that are associated with the weaknesses, the flip side of that particular team role, because none of us are perfect. We all have them. The other bit of feedback you can have is finding out who sees differences depending on who they are. So we have another page that says, you see yourself as this, and these are what the other people you've observed you, that's what the team was they see, in which order. And then you can start understanding how you may flex depending on who you're working with at the time and why they may see you differently to other people. This slide is ridiculous, so I made it slightly bigger. Not sure it's any better. Is that you also get an idea to see the words that are being ticked about you. This is actually mine. It was a long time ago, so I thought I'd put it in. I had 11 people feedback on me. And you got things like outspoken, challenging, inquisitive, hard driving. They're the sort of words that I need to understand to be able to get a real good picture of how my shaper role is coming across. Obviously, I've also got, I'm going down quite a bit actually. Helpful's down there. That's okay. But yes, this is quite an old one. Caring. That is there. It's in at least the top half. But again, having this level of knowledge about oneself means that when you are playing your role in the team, it is a role that has been collaborated and reinforced by others. It's so important we don't talk about a balanced team when we just talk about people's self-perception. I know other people have used perhaps other tools, and it's difficult because it looks like there's a bit of everything there, but everybody knows actually they're not that. They're something different. They've completed the initial questionnaire how they perhaps want to be, or perhaps how they think they should be. We've got a lot to talk about that, so it's so important that we do talk about not just self, but also feedback from other people. Number 4, when others don't know. Actually, before we go on to number 4, I'm going to be really unprofessional here because that's what I do. I'm just going to give you another case study of the last example because I've just remembered it and it is actually behind me. I worked with a team recently and they're a wonderful team. They're very creative, very entrepreneurial, which they needed to be for what they were doing. Let me just move that forward. Hang on, let me just do this. That's better, isn't it? You can see it now. They're quite entrepreneurial, and I was charged with just working with them just for a couple of hours online because I didn't have long to do things. They said, Joe, we need you to find us a completer finisher. We need a completer finisher because we're all off doing all this stuff and there's nobody kind of getting to the grips of the detail and making sure we don't make mistakes. I said, that's fine. And this was their team, but they'd only completed the self-perception inventory and had really asked them to do the observers, but they didn't quite understand why. They weren't sold on it. And that's absolutely fine. It can be an ongoing process. So this was when everybody was sharing their top 2 team roles. And we thought, oh, that's interesting. Oh, another person who's high plant resource investigator. Oh, somebody else was shaper coordinator. Very much the ideas, that drive, that getting stuff done. The roles were really there. But there wasn't anybody in the completer finisher implementer specialist. And I was like, well, what do I do? How can I find you a completer finisher? We looked at everybody's and one person stood out a little bit because their completer finisher wasn't too bad. It was in the manageable roles. And it transpired after lots of conversation and discussion and laughter. I have to say there was a lot of laughter with this team. There was one person who was a really high completer finisher implementer, but didn't tell anybody because they knew that they weren't the same as everybody else. And they thought that they had to hide this sort of talent that they had because they thought that this is what was required. The relief on everybody's face going, what, you enjoy that? Really? We didn't know that. And we're now going around and we're now going to be doing the observer assessments because I now understood that actually we need that because it gives us a bigger picture of those individuals concerned. And also the relief on her face, she's like, brilliant, I can play to my strengths now. It was a great situation to be in. So actually, they were more balanced once they looked at their observers. It's really interesting that we look at this. Right, sorry, back to the script. Oh, is that the right one? Yes, perfect. Apologies for that. I hope that's okay. Why are some words italic, cursive, and some not? What in this one here? Let's have a quick look back. It's because the ones in italics are the ones that are indicating these allowable, those associated weaknesses for each of the team roles. So you can see mine is okay. Let me go down there. I think I have manipulative, which is the allowable weakness of a coordinator. So that's why it's there, to give you an idea. If we're not there ticking words, which are the list A words, which are the strengths, or the list B words, which are there looking at those associated weaknesses. And like I say, we all have them. So it's important that we acknowledge that. Okay, balance. It's all well and good us having knowledge about ourselves, but we need to share it. There's no point having a balanced team unless everybody understands that balance and knows who's involved and understands how best to work with one another. This is really, really important. How people combine is critical for the success of the team. And some of those combinations are going to be more difficult than others. If you're Belbin accredited, you'll understand about opposites when people are so different. But actually, if they knew that, understood that, their overall, their combined team role profile is really powerful. So we need to be able to share these things. We need to be able to talk to people about them. And one of them is actually the exercise I just demonstrated behind you, is putting everybody's details on, we call a team circle. And it really, really does start conversation. People start understanding what it is that they're needing to do and what everybody else is there to do as well. It helps with that clarity of what it is that you are contributing to the team. We also recreate these as part of the Belbin team reports. The team reports are generated once the individuals have completed their self-perception inventory and got those observer assessments, got feedback from others. And then once that data's in, we can start saying, okay, where are the gaps? Where are the overlaps? And we'll do this for you automatically. The second page, it's called potential contributions. I know you can't read it. You just need to know it's there, really. And that's saying, right, okay, if you've got a problem, who do you need to involve? If you've got, you need to organize the work, who do you need to involve? So it gives you an indicator of who should be used at each stage. And I've also put this in here. This team circle is such a wonderful way of people understanding that. It gives that visual sometimes for people to appreciate the difference, the diversity. And what we recommend that people do as well to really understand those working relationships within a team is to spend time there. Too often we try and go from 0 to 100 miles an hour just straight away. We need to spend time as a team working out how we're going to work together. We always recommend having a team contract, and within that team contract, individuals contract to one another about how they are going to work. What are they going to do when they start annoying each other? What are they going to do when deadlines start going past? What are they going to do to celebrate success? How are they going to communicate things with the rest of the team? So we always recommend that you get your Belbin report. Use that as the language so it doesn't become personal. It becomes the language. Hi, I'm Joe. I'm really high shape and I'm really going to annoy you at some time. At some point, I will just get impatient and just go off. How are we going to manage that? How are we going to manage that not wrecking our relationship and actually wrecking what actually the team needs to achieve? I used to work with a fantastic marketing person called Tracy, and she had completely the different team roles to me. And she hated it when I put my shaper hat on. She really did. We had these safe words that we'd use, and we had agreed them beforehand. Where it's just like, Joe, just slow down. And I'd have one for her when I was like, detail, too much. So we worked together. We worked how we were going to do that. Everybody in the team needs to do that. And the team needs to understand those contributions. There's no point having a balanced team if people don't know how to work with one another. Okay, number 5. When the learning isn't embedded. I've already said it, and I will say it again. To really have high-performing teams, you've got to work at it. You've got to keep working at it. It's an ongoing process. Teamwork isn't a one and done. It's not a case of, right, well, we've all been on this team workshop and we now know how to be a team. We need to keep going over and keep using. We need to embed and use the tools, Belbin being one of them, to ensure that it's being used and we're always benefiting from that as a team. The amount of people who come to us and say, well, we've done some team thing, but it didn't really make a difference, or I don't know what to do now, or we've come to the end of that program and it's because there isn't really an end. We need to embed the learning within the team. I'll just go back actually to this one here. You see this slide here? This is taken from a case study of Caravella Coffee in Colombia. And they were having problems with their teams. They had done a myriad of different approaches. They'd tried so many different tools. And it was only when they used Belbin that they realized that the reason this management team wasn't going forward, and I'll send you the link to this case study in the email I send out, is that there was you can see that big gap on the implementation, big gap on implementer. They didn't have anyone within the team who had real strengths in being able to organize the work that needed to be done and process it going forward. And just by seeing that graph, just by doing that, didn't mean that they knew what to do either. It was an ongoing process of understanding what that meant, what people needed to do, and the support within the team for that to be done. So they constantly reviewed where they were. They constantly reviewed the behaviors that they were using. And it was over an ongoing process. They were able to really become a high-performing team and just do some amazing, amazing stuff. They presented this case study at our conference last year. It was incredible. But it was a case of they'd tried lots of do this, none of that had worked. They then used a tool which talked more about their behavior. And this was actually the key bit. It wasn't about personality or anything else. It was about behavior. And then they worked at it. And they used the language of Belbin to help them with that understanding of needing balance, but working at it. So balance isn't achieved when you're not constantly embedding what you learn and you're keeping it ongoing. That really is critical. Okay, number 6. When the team is too big, you don't need balance when the team is too big because it's not actually strictly a team. Meredith, how many people should we have in a team? To some extent, the answer must depend on the amount and type of work that needs to be performed. We need to check how many people that we have involved. Group work is very different to teamwork. We have different dynamics at play. When you have a lot of people involved, you start to get consensus of thought. You tend to get people just agreeing because you want to have, and you have that sense of belonging, don't you, when you have lots of people? You want to belong, you want to have something in common with people that are there with you. You're more likely to follow instruction. So a hierarchical work group, it can be quite big because you're being told what is that needs to be done. Size is critical. If it's too big, it doesn't really matter how many team roles or how much balance you've got, because there will be more of a move towards conformity anyway. I'm sure we've all been there. I'm sure you've been there when the team's been so big, nobody's voice is heard, nobody's contribution is really valued. We need to ensure that, going right back to that team and how you pick that team in the first place, that people are there for a reason, for a common objective. People know what the contribution is, and it's more collaborative. There isn't somebody saying this is what needs to be done. This is all contained within the team itself. How many people should you have in a team? Well, that's up for debate, isn't it? There's the 2 pizza rule, but then people always say, well, I don't like pizza. Or I'd have it all, that sort of thing. And really, it's a case of, think about it. I like to think about it as a dinner party. Is that when you have people round for dinner and you want to stay on the same track, the same conversation, it's great with 4, it's great with 6. Any more than that, you start having 2 breakout groups, don't you? I'm sure we've all been there, where there's been 2 separate conversations going on because there's too many people to be involved in one, because somebody's never getting their voice heard, like somebody's never getting their, everybody's always talking over them. So we need to keep it small. Um, is there an actual number? Not really, but you start going into double figures, that is a group. Without a shadow of a doubt, it's a group if it goes into double figures. Meredith's ideal number was 4. And he also liked there to be an even number, so there wasn't one person with like the casting vote. Some studies say 6, but any more than that, there is a consensus that people, the dynamics are different. They are very different. So please be conscious of that. You can't get true collaborative work if there's just too many people involved. Here we go. There's another just here from Team Roles at Work. The ideal size of a team is a matter of compromise between conflicting forces. On the one hand, there is a need to widen the composition, bringing in the full range of knowledge, experience, ability, and the wishes of individuals or representatives to participate through consultation, or the political desirability of securing commitment of all departments are amongst the many pressures that operate to inflate numbers. People's seniority, the ego, because they're involved in this, because it's political for them to be involved. We think, oh no, we need to get everybody involved here. We need to get them all in the same team. Yet on the other hand, there is the need to reduce noise and maximize involvement and individual effectiveness by keeping the team small. There is a conflict. One could argue that you can manage this by having concurrent teams if needed. If it politically you just couldn't have just a really small team, you could have it where you break it up and say, well, we'll have 4 concurrent teams with the same problems, then we'll come back and we'll share and we'll work out the best solution. I mean, that's a great thing to do when things are really high risk and high complex as well. Don't increase the people in the team, increase the number of teams. That's quite an important one. Or what you could do if you have to have everybody involved is you still keep the team very small, keep it core, but make sure you have enough debriefs about what's going on to everybody so people feel a sense of belonging. They feel that they're not being kept in the dark. And that's very often what the situation is people want to sense that they are part of the process of whatever's happening. So there are ways of managing it as opposed to going, no, we're full up, you're not coming in. You can manage this well. Okay, so where are we going next? Where there are no strong examples. This is very much a Belbin phrase. Does balance matter if there are no strong examples? A strong example is somebody who is showing that particular team role strength more than most people. So when you get your Belbin report and you can see the percentile score for each of those Belbin team roles, you can see how much of that team role that you have compared to the norm database population, which is an international one and is hundreds of thousands of people there. So for a strong example, we want you to hit that 80th percentile or higher for a particular team role. It means that you're showing that strength more than most. Why is that important? So very often we run sessions and we start it and everybody's putting their names on the team circle. Yeah, here we are, here we are. And we go, brilliant, it's balanced. And we go, but how strong are you of those roles? Or have you actually got a profile which is quite flat because you don't know your strengths? And you may have coordinator as your top, but it's only in the 60th percentile. We need to take that into consideration because the team to succeed, you need everybody be doing as well as they possibly can to really display and use that strength that they have as much as possible. So what we're looking at really, this is another page of the team report, is we're looking for individuals, and that's the dark green here, the individuals who really are at 80 or above, who really are a brilliant example of that particular team role. The other light green there is showing the average for the team. So we really need to find those ones who are the strongest and ideally the ones who are above 80. So what we find sometimes, this isn't a great example because the screen's quite small, is that we can run the team exercise and it can be very well balanced, and then we can run it again just looking at strong examples, and suddenly people's names disappear. And it's because what we need to do is work with them, and we need to develop them and coach them and understand how they can strengthen that contribution, because that's really important. Just by having a balanced team, just by people saying, yeah, that's my top role or that's my second role, actually, it doesn't matter. What we're looking for is a balanced team of people who are making the best contribution possible. They're in their 80th percentile or higher. And this, I think, really is interesting because it's where, when you use Belbin, for those of you who are accredited and you use Belbin on workshops, you know there's so many different facets to this. And it's because people are complicated. Teams are complicated. There isn't a one fix to suddenly help your teams. There's so many ways in which you can help your teams become higher performing, but it's something that you do by embedding that learning and using this as a tool to help people develop and grow, not just to say this is where you are right now. Okay, crikey, I've been talking for ages. So behavioural diversity, it is a prerequisite for success. We know that we need all 9 team roles, but it's not just balance that's needed. There's so many different elements to teamwork that make a team successful. Balance, ticking everybody off the list, isn't one of them. We need to do so much more than that. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to collect useful data. We need data that reflects the real situation. We need to get that feedback from other people so that we're not just limited by our own self-awareness, which, by the way, is only about 15% apparently, according to a research. Only 15% of us are actually self-aware. We need to embed team role learning. We need people to understand the strengths, to develop those relationships, to be able to announce where they're going to make the best contributions, and they need to build those strengths and networks within the teams. It's not a case of this is me and use it as an excuse forevermore. That's not what we're about. It's so much more than that. We need to ensure that we know what the team is there to do in the first place. Spend time here. And then you'll know which contributions need to be made and when. And make sure that we're talking teams. We reclaim that word teams. We reclaim that. And we don't make a big group try and work in the same way as a collaborative team. Both have their merits, both are needed. But for teamwork, make sure you're looking at the real thing. Okay. So 7 times when balancing the team doesn't work, 7 times when actually just having a balanced team isn't enough, is when you don't have consensus on those objectives, is when the team really isn't a team, when self-awareness is lacking. Time change over here. When others don't know the strengths present, when the learning isn't embedded, and when the team is too big, and when there are no strong examples. Teamwork is complicated. True teamwork is so rare, but teamwork is needed. It's needed more than ever to really make sense of this complex world that we are living in. So we need to spend time with our teams. We need to do more than just run a workshop. We need to do more than just run a couple of things and go, here you go. We need to work with them and give our teams the skills and the tools and the language and the data that they need to be truly successful. So it really is over to you. Like I say, here at Belbin, we run accreditation courses if you want to get Belbin into your toolkit and become that team expert. We have the team reports if you want to find out which words are ticked about you, which ones are in italics, or how that data, when put together, is going to really highlight that team for you. Please do get in touch. The details are here. They're belbin.com. And please, or just joe@belbin.com. You've got my email. We're going to be emailing later on today. For those of you who are watching the recording, please just go to belbin.com or contact us via team@belbin.com or contact with myself, Joe Keeler, on LinkedIn, and we can start a conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. If anybody has some questions, we will keep this running for the next 5 or 10 minutes. But for those of you who've got busy schedules, I know you have, or just would like to go off on holiday, it's been lovely for you joining us. Thank you so much. But otherwise, any questions, please do fire away into the comments box. Oh, and thank you. Thank you, Richard. I'm glad you found it useful. And Toby, thank you so much. It's wonderful to know that people were listening. You weren't just asleep. You never know, do you, when you talk into the void? One thing I will say is I think nowadays it's hard for everybody, isn't it? I think everybody's finding business and the world quite difficult right now. There's so many external factors for which we can do nothing about. And very often when that happens, people tend to not invest in their people as much. And I would really make a passionate plea is this is when your people matter more than ever. This is when it's more critical that people understand themselves and people understand their teams more than ever, because if nothing else, it will get you through quite a difficult time, but also it's going to really set you up for the future. I'm old enough to remember, was it 2008? When, yeah, it was really difficult times then. And we know that the companies who remained investing in their people and in their teams did so much better when we came out of that recession. In fact, I think Gallup have done some research and their employee engagement study at the time showed just that. So please, this is just a plea. It's hard, but your people are more critical than ever. You don't have as many of them. Perhaps you've got a recruitment freeze. So what you do need to do is ensure they're working together as well as they possibly can. Okay, Paul, thank you. A question. What if you work in a small company with 3 or 4 employees? Well, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Is a company a team? One would argue at that size, they do roll over into that team dynamic. What I would do, Paul, very much is run this exercise, understand your individual strengths, and then as you're the organization, see where those gaps are, because that's going to inform your next hire. Very often we work with SMEs and we work with startups, and we find that those team roles that are there to start with are those entrepreneurial ones, those shaper, result investigator, plant, the ideas, the drive. And then sometimes they recruit people who are very similar to them. And then you have all of these ideas and you have all of this drive, but you're lacking sometimes that organization, the detail, the specialist. All of these other roles are critical. So if you're only a small company, we're only small, it's really worth doing this, but instead of with that team perspective, saying, right, where does the company need to go? Where do we need to go as an organization? And do we have the right behaviors that are going to help us get there? It can be a really reflective, really useful exercise, Paul. Yes, Gary, absolutely. It's even more important to know strengths when you are a small team. There's only 9 of us here at Belbin UK headquarters, and it's really important for us to know the roles that we're playing and when we're playing them. Fabulous. Thank you so much. If there's any other questions, let me just double check. Wonderful. Yes, I'm sure he will enjoy Birmingham. He's just got to work out the commute for Norwich, but I'm sure he'll be fine. Great. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We'll be in touch very soon. Have a wonderful rest of the week, the rest of the summer, and we have another webinar planned for you in September. So please do check your emails and check our website. Thank you very much. Goodbye.